welcome to
Thanks
the
for
C12 Stories
having me.
podcast. Yeah, it's kind of everything lined up perfectly. I
It
know you've
did.
been doing a lot of traveling and stuff
Mhm.
like that, and you're like, hey, let's try and knock this out while you're here,
Right?
right?
Right.
Um,
It was meant to be.
all right, yeah. So, and also too, thankfully, we're here at Gateway.
We have history
We
here.
have history here. Yes, we did a first we did a photo shoot here,
Yep.
and then and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But we
Mhm.
did a video shoot. We
Yeah.
had a videographer here, did some photos and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a little tease. That's what we call that in the biz, right?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
right.
we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, but how we met
Mhm.
was at a Round Rock Express game.
Yeah.
I just happened to be shooting there. It was like 2 years ago now,
I think it
two
was
seasons
now.
ago.
Yeah, 2023.
And you happened to be singing the national anthem there.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, I got some photos of you, blah, blah. And then reconnected
Mhm.
on Instagram. And then the rest is history, as they say.
And he takes good photos. So
I-
it's hard to find good photographers, I think, but you took good photos and you're a good person, so we just kind of hit it off.
I try to do good
You are
at
both.
I try to do good at both. I do.
You're
There
definitely
are
both.
days where I feel like not that I'm not good, but it's like I didn't nail it that day.
Oh my gosh.
It's
I
like,
don't believe
but
that.
then I hear people say stuff like that, so
Yeah.
it makes me feel like I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you. This is what you're here
boy.
for, right? This is your
Whew.
story. So originally from the East Coast,
Yes,
right?
Pennsylvania
So, yeah,
girl.
Pennsylvania girl,
Mhm.
Keystone State.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about just like your history of like growing up in Pennsylvania and just
Yeah.
kind of like I guess it was closer more to the western part.
That's
right?
right.
Okay.
Oh gosh, where do I start? Northwestern Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Not a lot going on there. Small little town called St. Mary's in
Okay.
Elk County, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Everybody listening right now is like, I've never heard of that.
Right.
But music, performing was kind of in my family. So I'm the youngest of 4 kids.
Okay.
And my parents actually, their first date was at a choir rehearsal for church. So my parents actually
Wow.
started, when they were together, they were performing, they would tour around to different churches, they would sing for community events and things
Yeah.
like that. And it was my mom's dream that all the kids in the family would also sing as like a whole singing family group.
Right.
So we were known as the Von Timms, like the
Okay.
Von Trapp family singers.
So let me ask you this real quick, and I'll let you get back to it. Is like,
Yeah.
was this kind of like influenced by like the singing family stuff, like the Partridges?
Yeah, that's right.
or,
That's right. Sound of
the
Music.
Osmonds
Yeah,
and stuff? Yeah.
Osmonds.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
all
okay.
of that good stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm the youngest of 4 kids.
Yeah.
And started from a really, really young age because I saw, my 2 older sisters and my brother were already into performing and dance classes and piano lessons, and they were in choir. So it's interesting because I was actually too young to start dance, but my sisters were already in it at that time. Seriously, I was like 2 or 3 years old. And I would always be there with my mom when she was picking up my sisters from dance.
Right.
And I was just so into it. And the instructor at dance class was like, we got to get her in here. She wants to do this. So I was the youngest kid in my town. They let me get into, dance classes even before I was the right age.
Yeah.
So that kind of kicked off, my love of performing was really dance first.
Okay.
And then, of course, it continued from there to, instruments and marching band and then show
Okay.
choir and dance team and all of that stuff just
Yeah.
kind of happened afterwards. But big music influence in all things music ever since I was a little girl.
Yeah. Okay. What's the well, I guess it would be really hard to ask. It's like asking my daughter, like, what's her favorite musical? Right now, it's The Outsiders.
The Outsiders.
But that's Brooklyn. That's what she wants to do. She's like, New York City, Broadway. That's
I
her
didn't
North
know.
Star.
She's into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good for
Yeah,
her.
that's her thing. That's her thing. And today's her birthday, actually.
Happy
and,
birthday. What's
and
her name?
Brooklyn.
Happy birthday, Brooklyn.
Yeah, happy birthday, Brooklyn. We have a really cool surprise for her, for a gift. I'll tell you after we're done here.
I can't wait to hear.
Okay, so big family influence of music.
Yeah.
Dance.
Yeah.
Music instruments.
Yeah.
It just right off the bat. So
All of it.
at what age?
Honestly, I started when I was like 3.
Okay.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of got into everything. It was dance first, and then, musicals and singing. But the hard part about where we grew up, and I always kind of talk about this when I'm being interviewed, is that, where we were from, it wasn't close to anything. And so for performing arts, like, sure, I had a dream of, being on Broadway and being famous and successful one day. But Northwestern Pennsylvania, that's like kind
isolated.
of, that's like between Pittsburgh and Erie, kind of right in the middle, very woodsy, very rural. And so it was really hard to, get out opportunities outside of just the local stuff when I was growing up. Whereas if you're in a hub, we were talking about Philly or Baltimore or close enough to New York to get in and out of the city, a lot of other kids my age had that opportunity just because of where they were. So that was kind of one of the things that I had to overcome in terms of my training and really honing my skills and talent was, hey, I'm a little bit more held back because there's just less opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same. You could say this. It's almost like the same in photography.
Oh yeah.
Right. If I didn't live in Austin, I probably wouldn't have had a lot of live music influence.
Right.
I'd be a
Austin's
lifestyle photographer or landscape or animals or birds or whatever. Right. But being here, live music is the thing, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's So I could understand it. Even sports is like that too.
Yeah.
Like I could tell it's, but also too, I think that leans into no matter where you're from or where you're at in the country or in the world,
Right.
it still has to take the level of want to,
Right.
or desire to want to get better,
For sure.
or want to continue in it.
For sure.
Because it's easy to get discouraged. You're like, oh, I'm never going to make it to New York.
Yeah.
Or I'm never going to make it to LA or whatever. But if you want to do it, you want to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's definitely the drive and, commitment to what I really wanted to do that kind of helped me get to the next level.
So your earliest memories, what was of like you doing any like musicals or stage performance stuff? Like, was that with your family? Was that solo? Or was it kind of a combination of the two?
A little bit of both.
Okay, a little bit of both, yeah.
So growing up, as I mentioned, there were not many opportunities to be in musicals. It was a lot of just community theater or the high school productions that were happening in town. And so my family would actually perform in all of those community musicals together. So
your parents too?
My parents. So my dad was Daddy Warbucks in
Annie.
the one year. There was another year that we were all in Sound of Music.
Okay.
So my dad was in it, my mom was in it, and then the four of us kids were all different kids in the Von.
I have the song.
Von Trapp
the one,
family.
I have the doe, a deer, a female. Yeah, I have. Yep.
Yes, exactly. So those are some of my earlier memories. I was one of the youngest kids in the Von Trapp family in Sound of Music, but it was cool to me and to my mom at the time because her entire family was in the musical together.
Yeah.
So it was really a fun experience when we were all, going to rehearsals together and, on stage together in some of these shows. But then, yes, outside of doing some of those musicals and performances with my family, I also kind of had my own schedule for dance classes and things that I was still involved in school.
And like tap, ballet, jazz, contemporary, all of it.
All of it, yeah. I don't even know. I really did every single style of dance you can possibly imagine because I just loved it.
Yeah.
Tap was really cool because, you have fun rhythms and you get to make a lot of sound. But then I also loved ballet because you have to be very elegant and poised,
Yeah.
So all of that, rolled up into one ball. And it's just like, wow, it's amazing how, all of that training from such a young age can be transferred into all of the things in terms of entertainment world that I've done.
Yeah.
It was all important.
Too. I mean, like, because if you don't do entertainment, you still have to have work ethic and push and drive to be a CEO somewhere or have or I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but flipping burgers, like,
for sure.
You have to have the want to be good at it.
Right.
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And, my parents were really good about encouraging us and, letting us really hone our craft in terms of entertainment and wanting to be in that business.
Too.
It is.
It's really big.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, we all still got, degrees. We all still went to college.
Right.
I majored in communications. My siblings majored in music. And so we still had, what I would generally call a fallback degree because performing is, it's a hustle.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you're in a show and sometimes you're not. So you kind of have to be able to pivot during those different seasons. So it was great that my parents were like, hey, yeah, do your thing. We fully support you doing entertainment,
but reality
doing music,
is over here somewhere.
but also go to school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You need both.
That's good. That's good. So, with going to school and stuff like that, how was that doing? I know you said communications, but you were still doing performing.
It was
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like going through high school and college, talk about like those kind of transitions.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people. Brooklyn, she's about to be a freshman in high school. Like
Yeah.
those 15-year-old girls that are like wanting to do that for their lives. Like,
For sure.
Talk about that transition of like when you graduate to like from middle school to high school to college.
Goodness.
Like,
never give it up is where I will start, because if you don't, and I fully believe this, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so in terms of dance, if I didn't have an opportunity to continue dancing or teaching dance, I lost a lot of my flexibility and skill over the years. And so even now, I'm 33 years old, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can still kind of maybe get into that split, but it's not as good as it was.
Yeah.
And so I have always said to young people, never give it up. If it's something that you love, if it's something that you're passionate about, never give it up. Because if you're not constantly using that skill, that part of your brain, muscle memory, all of those things that go into, memorizing lyrics to a song or remembering how your body is supposed to be for this type of dance move, you have to continue using it.
Yeah.
And it's hard because life gets crazy. So especially when you're getting into middle school, high school, college was the one that I was like, really, that for me was when I said to myself, I have to continue doing something during the summers, during the summer season. So I was in school during the school year. Of course, I was doing all of the extracurricular activities that I could. But what was interesting is during the summertime, I wouldn't just go home and, be back home with my parents in St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. I would actually go away and start doing summer stock performances. So like dinner theaters, the little like summer camps where you get paid, but you go and do shows.
You're putting you
work hard.
You're working.
Yeah.
You're working on your craft.
Right, exactly. So I think that also made a big difference in terms of like, hey, always using your skill set. Even during the summers, I wasn't putting it away.
Right.
And it's the same. I know we talk about sports a lot too. It's the same with sports. It's the same with all things,
absolutely.
right? Use your skills, use your crafts. Otherwise, you're going to kind of backtrack and then have to take that step forward and get back into it at some point.
Yeah.
And so I think that really has made such a big difference in terms of the trajectory of my career, is that I never put it aside, or I really tried not to.
Yeah.
Dance.
Also too, you're in college, you want to have a social life.
Right.
That's everybody. Everybody wants, and now today with just everything in their phone and social media, TikTok, whatever, everybody's right here.
Right.
It's hard to still stay and like, hey, you still got to keep working at this. So
For sure.
That's something I as a parent, I'm trying to like learn how to help navigate a 15-year-old through all that.
Yeah.
But she's also got to do it on her own.
Right.
But just like you, I've seen you perform. Like I see Brooklyn perform, and I just seeing her over the years, just mature.
Good for her.
And it's just like, she just blows me away every time I see her.
Yeah.
So, have you done anything with your family since? Now that we're older and we're all grown up and stuff like that, have y'all ever thought about doing something or?
Oh, I don't think that we have done anything together as a family for quite some time. We used to, I think one of the most recent ones things that we did together as a family was like a Christmas cantata, but even that probably 8, 9, 10 years ago at this point.
Okay.
We used to sing the national anthem for the Pittsburgh Pirates games. That was fun.
Nice.
So that's a cool memory. We did a couple of those types of events.
Yeah.
But now with all of the kids kind of being spread across the country and I move, it feels like every other day at this point to a new state for a new opportunity. I'm like, we can't even get the whole family together to just hang out, let alone Sing.
I 1000% understand that. I come from a big family, and we always keep like we need to start meeting for family reunions and not wait because everybody's already married or stuff like that. So when we're getting like I don't want to meet at funerals.
I know.
Let's get together for for reasons, you know.
Gotta make the time.
Well, there you go. Let's maybe start a thing.
I feel inspired.
I'm just saying. I mean, if you
Okay,
have the talent's there, you know each other.
Yeah.
Why not, right?
It is fun when we do finally get together for our family vacations, which don't happen often. In fact, we're getting together at the end of June, I think. It is wild, though, Alexi, if you've spent, and it's like a band, too. If you've spent years together, years of your life together, making music, it's like, okay, so we'll just be sitting on the couch in the living room, chilling out after dinner with my family.
Someone just starts a beat. Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody just knows exactly what to do. Like we fall into place.
There you go.
And 4-part harmony just comes out of the air. It's pretty wild.
That's your music video right there.
Needs to happen.
That's it.
Okay.
We figured it out.
And you will be doing the video.
All right. Gotta start storyboarding now.
It's done.
All right. We're gonna have to talk more about the family music video event thing, but so after high school, college, we're moving on to our professional lives, right?
Yeah.
So shortly after college, talk about after we graduate, you know, we move into professional career, right? So what leads you into, online shopping or even the news stuff? How does that transition happen?
It's an interesting story here with my professional career and how that all started out. As I said, I went to school for communications, but right after school, I wanted to pursue performing mostly, and pretty much exclusively at the time. So I left college. I actually graduated early from college. I did the December graduation thing, so I went back and walked in the spring. But I left early because I had a job offer at Sight and Sound Theaters down in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. If you're unfamiliar with them, they call it the Christian Broadway. It's the largest stage in all of North America. They use live animals for all of their productions and recreated biblical moments, right? Biblical stories. And so I got a job in Noah's Ark.
Okay.
It was really, really cool. The Ark is all around you.
The whole
it would
set,
be,
basically.
yes, the entire set is multiple levels of the Ark. And the coolest part about it was the animals were trained to come down the center aisle, 2 by 2.
2 by 2? No way.
To load into the Ark.
That would be epic to
We
watch.
had everything. Goats, horses, camels, everything. And they were trained to nobody was with them. A couple of them had handlers, but the animals would just come straight through the audience, straight down that center aisle, up the ramp, and into the Ark. It was a really cool thing. And they do
Are they still doing that today?
Yeah. Actually, this is kind of a cool plug. They're actually doing Noah's Ark right now. It's called Noah, but they're actually doing that up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania again. So all these years later, they brought back that same show. And of course, they do Jonah and the Whale, and they did Moses, where they parted the sea. I mean, really cool productions.
Huh.
So that's where I started.
Okay.
Which was a really cool opportunity.
Yeah.
It's just the stage is huge, the auditorium, the theater is huge, and the productions that they do in terms of special effects are out of this world good.
Yeah.
So I started my performing career there and really just wanted to perform. That was when I was I want to be on Broadway and all of the things and travel everywhere. So I had, I think it was about three years of just full on performing. That was my thing. So after Sight and Sound, I did some other dinner theater productions where I was in Shrek the Musical and Hairspray and Seven Brides for Seven Brothers and a lot of really cool productions that a lot of other people would know.
Is it still in Lancaster?
Shows. Still in Lancaster area. Yeah. So I kind of set up shop there and was working in theaters just in Lancaster during that time.
Yeah.
Then an interesting opportunity came up near Baltimore, Maryland in radio.
Okay.
And it was a cool situation because they did have, your traditional radio broadcasting. However, everything that we were doing on the radio would also be video streamed. And so I had a camera on me, and I was their entertainment host. So I would host their music video countdowns. We would talk entertainment. I would bring local people in to interview them about what they're doing in the community. So that was a really cool glimpse into the broadcasting world. Even though I was still, theater or bust during the time, I was like, this is interesting, and I really like this.
But still practicing the craft, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
You're still working on performing and performative arts and stuff like you've been doing your whole journey so far.
Right. Still using your skills, but in a different way.
Right.
Which I think is so important, and one of the messages that I think, for your daughter Brooklyn, or for anybody else who wants to do anything in the realm of entertainment, once you have the skills and the commitment and the dedication to your craft, it's so crazy because you really can transition into all of the different elements of broadcast in so many different ways, whether it is TV or, entertainment, performing on stage.
Right, But it also takes a little bit of courage to want to dip your toe in the water, so to speak, right? It's something that you don't normally do.
For sure.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
because radio, you're like, oh, I can use my voice because I've been using my voice, but it's like, wait, there's a camera now. So
this is different.
Right. So talk about that. Talk about those little differences that, those differences that pop up.
Yeah.
And then how you're able to, maneuver and figure out okay, I need to do this differently, or I need to do that differently, or this might not work well on camera, but it works on video, with audio. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a really interesting conversation that you learn from doing, right?
Okay.
You figure it out while you're doing it. It's trial and error, because I was like, I got hired for this job, very thankful for it. But, at that time I had done spokesperson work, commercial work, but not an official, I'm on camera all the time for my job, and you're going to watch me on internet, on the internet. And so it's honestly, it was self-awareness for me, where on stage in a huge theater, you have to be over the top. You have to be super expressive.
Right.
You have to make those facial expressions that are going to carry to the back of the auditorium.
Right.
Whereas for TV and for film, it's more subtle.
Yeah.
Your facial expressions would change. They wouldn't be as over the top.
Right.
You would have to be a little bit more contained in that.
So, and also too, you don't get the haptic feedback.
Right.
Of a crowd. Granted, I would imagine on stage
That's
you
a good
don't get to
point.
see every face, but there's people there.
There's a vibe.
Right? But then when you're having to talk into a camera, I would imagine it's a little different, I guess.
It's more like you have to believe that
You
they're
have to,
there.
you have to say, exactly. I was about to say, you kind of have to make up the audience in
You have
front
to
of you.
picture them.
Right.
That a lot of broadcast professors would say you have to picture them on the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
And so, it was a lot of self-awareness of okay, I have to be a little bit more subtle with my facial expressions. I have to be a little bit more confident. I mean, not that you don't have to be confident in front of, a huge audience like we would have here in this space, but it's a different type of confidence. You have to just know, okay, I'm doing the right thing, and probably people are watching. You see the numbers later, right? But that was an interesting experience, because it was, still using my skill set, but in a completely different way. So it was quite a learning curve moving into that side of broadcast.
Right, yeah. Well, I would imagine you're kind of starting to dipping into the acting thing, because you're having to change your skill set to mold into what the medium that you're filming in or recording in or performing in, right?
For sure.
Which I appreciate people that can do that. People that can get up on a stage like this and sing and dance and stuff like that. I mean, the singing and dancing and all that other stuff, that's already good enough on itself, but then actually do it in front of other people
That's the hard part.
I don't want to say without the fear of, but with the confidence of being able to just do it. That's why I'm down there in the photo pit taking pictures of people that can do it.
Yeah.
Because I can't do that, but I'm going to try and make it look as cool as possible with my camera.
Well, some days are easier than others for those that are the ones on stage.
Right. Yeah.
We've got bad days too.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess the talent is none of them know it.
True. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's their first time seeing it, regardless. And so a lot of the times it's like, oops, I messed up a word, or oops, I came in late, or
Yeah.
oops, the band messed that lick up, you know, but they don't know. It's their first time seeing it.
There's times, I mean, I've helped working cameras up here all the time, and in between services, I hear the band going back there, and I hear them just razzing each other the whole time about like, oh yeah, you missed that. That was pretty bad. And I was like, I don't even know what you
Sounded
missed,
great.
but okay.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
I know. It honestly is the art of entertainment.
Yeah.
It's so thrilling. It's so exciting to just be in the entertainment industry as a whole, because it's like a whole different language
Right.
that entertainers really do speak.
Yeah. So, okay, so going from the amazing production with Noah and stuff, I have to see that. I have to see that, whether it's on YouTube or go see it live. So we're doing
is really
radio
cool.
live streaming in Baltimore. So,
Right.
and then, so how does that take you to what you've been doing most recently on the online shopping?
Okay. So there was a period of time after the broadcasting opportunity in Maryland that I was on a cruise ship. And this comes into play because we were working full-time on American-based riverboat cruises. So typically the Mississippi River, largest steamboat ever built that had overnight passengers for about a week at a time. So I got a job on these cruise ships as part of the production team, the live entertainment that would perform every night. So it was me and 3 other performers, live band. We would do, Broadway shows, country shows, all of those great things that the passengers that were on for a week would come and see each night.
Yeah.
I did that for about 5 years. Matt, my husband, came with me.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I kind of had this feeling after doing it for a while. Matt and I got married in 2015.
Okay.
And the day after we got married in Baltimore, Maryland, I had to go back to work on the boat. He wasn't officially a part of the team at that time, but we didn't really get an official honeymoon because I had to go back to the boat, which it was fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. But we were then living on the boat up until I think it was, I don't know, again, like 4 or 5 years that we were full-time on this boat. It wasn't like a long-term contract where you're on for 6 to 9 to 9 months or a year,
Right.
like some of the larger ships. We were on for a month and then off for a month. But still, that's a lot of time to be on a ship. So anyway, long story short, Matt and I go to the boat the day after our marriage. And so we were spending the first years of marriage on a boat, living in a cabin, a crew cabin, down beneath, where everybody can see the land and air and water and all of that, and the crew hold. We were living in a cabin that was the size of a walk-in closet, and we were sleeping in bunk beds.
Yeah.
And we were doing this for the first years of our marriage. So I kind of hit this point where I was like, okay, I don't think I can do this anymore. We have to live on land
Right.
and be married, and explore that part of our marriage. So it was really interesting. I started to feel that way. And then before home shopping came into play, we got a call from somebody that we had done a national tour with. The show was called Rocktopia. And we were on tour with Rocktopia as they kind of came to some of the different cities. We went and worked for them as backup singers to the main star
Like
performers.
the main touring crew.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got a call from them. It was our last year on the ship. We got a call. They said, hey guys, we're going to Broadway and we want you to come with us. I was like, what?
Yeah.
This is the craziest thing ever. Because, you think to get on Broadway, you're hustling, you're going to auditions over and over again. But then this is the part of
years
entertainment.
and years of understudy work.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the part of entertainment where they say, well, it's who you know. It's the connections that you have. It's the
Right.
people that you've worked for. And so it was the craziest thing. We just got this call because we had done a couple shows with this great touring, beautiful production. It was basically symphonic works fused with rock classic songs.
Okay.
So it was
Yeah.
really, really interesting just to hear how they meshed and fused both of these genres together into beautiful works. And so they called us. We're like, heck yeah, we'll come to Broadway. That's amazing. So we got off the ship for an extended period of time, went to Broadway, did the thing. After we were on Broadway, just to kind of, shorten this story up, we went back to the boat and I said, okay, well, I don't know. Like, what else is there to do in performing world?
You feel like you
Yes.
you got to the mountaintop.
I've traveled across the country. I've done dinner theaters. I've done summer stock. I've done all of my favorite shows. I've worked on a cruise ship. I've produced and, had my own show at this point now, a one-woman show that was different than the one that I tour now. And then we got to go to Broadway. And I said, that was just the coolest experience ever. And I was so grateful for it. But even on Broadway, it was still a hustle.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had this pivotal moment in my career where I said, okay, I have a background in communications. I loved that broadcasting job that I used to have in Baltimore. How can I use that skill set to transition into TV, which would also take us to something that was stable, that we could be in the same state, in the same city, living on land, in the same house for a period of time.
Yeah.
So that was kind of when I said, all right, with all of these things, with us living on a ship for the first years of our marriage, to now having kind of done the pinnacle of what you would do in terms of on stage performing, I said, I think it's time for TV. So that's when QVC came into play.
Okay.
And
QVC is based out of
Westchester, Pennsylvania.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had always, been aware of home shopping and thought it was really cool. My mom was always watching it when we were growing up.
Yep.
And wait, this is the coolest thing ever. You can order something from your TV. Wow. Convenient,
I
right?
remember as a kid seeing those channels. You're just like, oh, that's interesting.
And don't they sell you on it? It's like you watch for 5 minutes, you're like, I do need that.
Yeah.
This is going to change my life.
Well, it's just like all these commercials that come out nowadays. It's like, wait, I think I do need that.
I know.
I think I have that. Maybe I should get that thing. I don't know. Yeah.
This will enhance my life greatly, so I need to buy that right now.
Yeah.
So QVC came into play because it has always kind of been, something that I had kind of had on the back burner, as I would love to do that when I am going full force. Broadcast TV is my career. So I was in some of the callbacks for one of the host jobs a few years back, and then ended up getting paired with a brand instead. Meaning I would go on if for example, like Skechers was going to have an airing on QVC. Right. I would be the person from Skechers that comes on and tells you all of the specs.
So you were like
of the new shoes.
Right. So you were like the Jake from State Farm.
Yeah,
Like, you heard Jake from State Farm, you knew who that person looked like.
The expert,
right.
yeah,
Gotcha.
the expert on the product. So I got paired with a fantastic brand at QVC. It was home fragrance and fine fragrance brands, so candles, and then also personal fragrance, perfumes and things like that. And so I was working on QVC up until the pandemic happened. And then when the pandemic happened,
the great life reset.
Everything changed. Yeah. Yes. And I loved my job. I would have never left, but it was such an uncertain time for freelancers, and I was a freelancer during that.
I mean, for everything.
Yeah. Nothing was happening. And so that's when, my U.S. tour really started to take off after that, and where I was moving all over the country for the next gig and pivoting constantly and trying to find the best spot for me.
And doing different types of acts, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so then from there, my career now has really morphed into stage and screen. Because like I said at the beginning of the show, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it, right? So never put your skills on the back burner, especially for the entertainment industry, because you never know where you're going to have to pull that skill out of your pocket for the next job.
Yeah.
If theater isn't working out, if singing isn't happening for you at that time, you still have the skills.
You still got to work those muscles.
You still got the confidence. You still got the poise. Okay, so transition that into a different part of the entertainment industry, and you'll be good.
Yeah.
So anyway, I say all of this because in the journey that I've had over the last 5 years since the pandemic, I said, okay, no, I got to have a little bit of both here. However I can make it happen. So now I kind of say I do stage and I do screen. For TV world, it's generally been home shopping. Mm-hmm. I also had the experience in news a few years back because during the pandemic I said, hey, all right, well, everything's uncertain. Obviously, live shows were not a thing for entertainment during the pandemic. And I said, what isn't going anywhere during the pandemic because nobody knew how long it was going to last. And in fact, it lasted a lot longer than anybody expected.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought, you know, I was planning my we got married, and me and my wife got married in November of 2020. We had picked our venue and everything at the beginning of the year.
Oh.
And we're like, should be fine by November.
Right? Yeah.
No, I mean,
no. It was rough.
Still worked, but you know, but it was
a little different.
Right.
Oh, you had a pandemic wedding.
It wasn't bad. It actually worked out well. We had about 80 or so people show up that wanted to come.
Were we social distancing?
My sister handled all that stuff, and nobody got sick. So
oh my gosh,
success. Yeah.
Good job.
So yeah, but still, it was still. I mean, it was still a strange time. Like I said, I just the Great Reset.
It was. Yeah. I like that you're calling it that because it truly, truly was. So I said, I don't know. Entertainment is not a thing. You know, cruise ships weren't happening. Even TV world, I thought that we weren't going to get affected, you know, in terms of home shopping and where I was at the time.
Because most of it is online and you're, for the most part, pretty separate from each other and stuff like that. Yeah.
But I guess the issue was that companies were just so concerned about being able to sustain through the pandemic because people weren't buying, people were scared, you know, all of that type of stuff was happening.
Was any of that part of like the optics of still operating too?
Yeah, I mean they did. So at the time they were still operating, but it was very, very different.
Yeah.
And so for us as the talent, we were like, I don't know, like now there's another element to like showing that we're comfortable on TV, still doing the thing.
So, the reason I asked that is like little side tangent is like whenever Tom Cruise was filming Top Gun Maverick, and there's a clip out there. I don't know if you've seen it or anybody's. Whenever they were under these restrictions, wearing masks, stuff like that, he grilled everybody. He's like, "Hey, we are trying to set a standard here. We have to do this the right way."
I think you remember that. I remember that now.
So as I was asking, is like, was the optics of operating, you know? Because I mean, even you know, places like churches or you know, any of those places that still need to operate.
It was, you know, every place was different. I think during that time, for the bulk of the pandemic, then I was actually in news. And so, yes, in terms of the optics, we had to be very aware and conscious of what the viewer and what the audience was going through. And so you're right. Yes, we had to social distance ourselves at the desk because viewers would write in and say, "Hey, why are you guys like?" They would actually get offended if we were too close together. You know, there were even times that, like, I mean, obviously the reporters were wearing masks, and I wasn't doing that because I was at the anchor desk. But yeah, I mean, there were a lot of things that we had to do before we were able to go live for a show. We had to wipe everything down before and after every single show. We were sanitized. I was wearing my mask up until 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Took my mask off, and it was still very scary because there were times that yes, I was still kind of close to somebody and I was like, I don't know, like we were all so scared at the time. We knew so little about what was happening that it added another layer to the chaos that is live TV.
All right, so my favorite thing that I've been wanting to talk about this whole time is one of the things that we did here on this stage when you had a band here, had a videographer here, and I was just here as a fly on the wall taking photos during the whole thing. Judy at 100. It's a show dedicated to the life of Judy Garland. That whenever I watched you doing the filming for your promo video and stuff like that here, whenever you started talking about doing the show touring and stuff, I thought it was literally just you coming up and just doing multiple outfit changes and stuff like that and just singing Judy Garland songs. But when I actually watched the show, there was another aspect to it that I'm going to let you talk about that I thought was really awesome.
Cool.
But let's go back to how does this idea even start? Where does the idea of taking one of the greatest entertainers of all time, as you've said plenty of times and everybody should know, how does someone come up with like, hey, I want to do a Judy Garland show and celebrate her life?
Right. So it started back in 2022. That's where the concept kind of began for the show. And it was in celebration of what would have been Judy Garland's 100th birthday. So we put together just a very small cabaret style show where it really was just the songs of Judy Garland for a special event in Austin. It started that way, and I had a lot of fun doing it. It's interesting because until you challenge yourself on different genres, different types of songs, you don't know that your voice is able to necessarily go there. You know, so some of her songs, very challenging. Some of her, you know, songbooks that she performed in her shows and movies, you know, that was a learning experience for me to kind of challenge my voice to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
However, it started out as just a simple tribute to Judy Garland in honor of her 100th birthday. Well, we had so much fun doing that very, very small show in Austin, Texas, you know, stripped down, cabaret style, that we turned it into a full-fledged show from there.
Yeah.
And it was just, it's interesting because I've had a lot of different one-woman shows. You know, we've talked about this before. On cruise ships, I had a Linda Ronstadt show.
Okay.
She's great too.
Yeah.
She's great too. I love her music. Had a Linda Ronstadt show. I had a Women Who Rock show. So it was just a little bit more rock and roll, a little bit, you know, tribute to rock and roll as a whole. I had a Broadway show. So I had been touring these shows for a couple years when I was on cruise ships, but this idea for the Judy Garland thing came up in honor of her 100th birthday, as I said. But it was interesting because after we had done it once for that small event, for that celebration, you know, my husband and I kind of got to talking to different people in the entertainment industry, and they said, wow, that's a really cool concept. Wow, I love that idea. You know, and I'm not the first to sing Judy Garland songs. I'm not the first to have a Judy Garland show. There are other people out there. You know, it's like the Elvis impersonators now. It's like they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. There are good and bad ones.
There are. I've seen a lot of them.
Yeah.
Also good music, Elvis. But a lot of the people that we had connections to and were networking with at the time in terms of agents and, you know, people who book for cruise ships, they were like, wow, this is really a cool thing. I'm interested in that, more so than a lot of the other shows that I had already been booking on cruise ships for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of her songbook. I think it's because of her story. I think it's because of her range of what she was able to do and the, you know, the experience that she took you on in her shows and in her movies.
Yeah.
And so it really blossomed. Originally it wasn't my plan to completely make it into what it is today, but it just kind of spiraled.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm so thankful for it now because it is now a couple years later part of my identity.
Yeah.
And so yes, as you said, it's interesting because when I do have these shows and when I perform and I'm performing coming up, I have a lot of shows. So follow me on social media, you'll see where we'll be and where we'll be performing the show at. But I always say it's not an impersonation show. So in contrast,
it is not.
In contrast to, you know, the Elvises of the world,
Yeah.
the Elvi of the world.
Is that the plural of Elvis?
No, I'm just saying it. We're going with it. The
start it.
Elvi of the world. You know, there are a lot of those other Judy Garland shows that the singers, the performers, will dress up and, you know, try to do the wig and make themselves look like Judy Garland.
Right.
Some of them a little bit older than myself too. So what I wanted to do when we were turning this into a full hour and a half stage show with the music, multimedia production, the difference that I wanted to have in terms of how I set up my show was the songs, yes, of course.
Yeah.
But really the story chronologically of Judy Garland from, you know, her early age, her growing up in also a family of performers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crossover and similarities, I think, with me and Judy now that, you know, I know so much of her story and her history.
Yeah.
So we really take you on the journey of Judy Garland, where it started, where it ended, the good times, the highs, the lows, the the goods, the bads,
the windy road of life,
the failed marriages, the divorces, the addictions. I mean, near the end there, it was drugs and alcohol. And so we have all of those elements in the show, that it's not just singing her music. It's not me dressing up like her, trying to be her.
Yeah.
Because I can't.
Yeah.
I can't be her. Okay.
No.
I wouldn't want to try,
because
she is.
There's
only one.
Yeah.
But the story element, I think, is very, very different, because I remember you told me after the show that we had here in Austin, you came up to me afterwards and you said, I didn't realize everything that Judy went through.
Absolutely.
The story that you told.
It was like watching a museum, a performative museum.
Oh my gosh.
It really was. Like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Like, because it was, again, being here doing the video shoot.
Yeah.
And then going to see the full production. Watching, it was like watching two different shows.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was like, the singing and performing, but just, and then just the history of her life.
Crazy.
I mean, the one thing that really caught my eye, and I'm going to let you keep talking about it,
Yeah.
was the Star is Born. I had no clue that the one with Gaga and
Bradley Cooper
was a shot for shot.
Yeah.
Until y'all split it like that.
Wasn't that neat?
I was like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I love movies, and I love learning history about movies and stuff, and that's something I never knew.
Right.
Until I saw that, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Wasn't that wild?
Yeah.
So, and then that's another element of the show that we were really excited to incorporate. So the stories, absolutely, the songs, they're there, but then the multimedia production of it all. So we have a big screen, or we project onto a big screen, and we actually show you some of those early videos of Judy. And then, as you said, there were 4, I think, different versions of A Star is Born.
Yep.
But many consider...
She was the second?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, second of 4. But many would say that Judy's was like the definitive telling of the A Star is Born story.
Okay.
And so then in 2018, that was when Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper did their remake.
It's a great
so
movie.
good.
It is really good.
If you haven't seen it,
It's really good.
you got to see it.
It's really
Oh my
good.
gosh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
They were so good. But then, yes, if you saw Judy Garland's version, in some of those like crazy emotional
The
scenes
intimate
that
shots
were happening,
between the two.
yes,
yeah,
their
they're very similar,
interactions, you see how they really did. I feel like they watched Judy Garland's version when they were probably, putting it all together in production, and they wanted to recreate some of those scenes from Judy's version with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper.
And I feel like there were some of those versions that they created with the Chris Christopherson, Barbra Streisand version.
Yeah.
I feel like Bradley Cooper's
That's right.
character was kind of
Yes.
very close to,
Very much,
more
yeah.
closer to Chris Christopherson than
I think
Judy
so, too.
Garland's counter.
I think so too.
So, but if you haven't seen this show, there is a part of the show, and I am not spoiling it here.
Okay.
But there is I believe it's towards the end. There's a song that you do. Man, I want to say it, but I can't. I don't want to give it away. It is the most incredible feat of production when it comes to the screen, the audio of it, and then you jumping into it.
Yeah.
Like it's a beautiful mix of like. It's hard to describe without giving it away.
It's a famous duet with Judy Garland and somebody that you know.
Yeah.
That we turn into a trio.
Yeah.
Is that good?
That's good. Yeah. Okay.
'Cause-
You said it. I didn't. Okay. You gave it away. No, but that was a really, would have never thought that before, because I've seen something similar whenever Natalie Cole
Yes.
did the duet
Yes.
with her dad.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So that's what. As soon as I saw it, I was like, that's what it reminded me
Exactly,
of. And they're starting to do that now. I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
the most recent Beatles song.
I have
where
not seen
they
it.
got
No.
the audio tapes
Uh-huh.
of John Lennon had recorded this song.
Right.
And then obviously Paul and Ringo are the only ones
Sing.
still alive.
Right.
And they recorded their
Sing
spot,
with
and then
it.
they did one more song together. So it's actually pretty cool.
Isn't that amazing though? Like the power of technology,
Yeah,
right? I mean, you can do anything
yeah.
these days.
I mean, you could look young forever.
That's what I want. I need the secret
The
sauce.
de-aging, the just audio stuff that they could do nowadays,
Right.
it's pretty cool that they could do that stuff. So.
It truly, truly is. So I'm very thankful for technology. Otherwise, I would never be able to sing
Yeah.
with these women.
Yeah, no, and it's really great. And your husband's also involved with this
is.
production too,
Yeah,
right? So I mean,
so
that's a big element.
Yeah, he helped write a lot of the moments,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of the script because he is just like, he's an entertainment historian.
Yeah.
Really, he knows
you
everything
can tell.
about everyone.
And you can tell, like it shows in the performance too.
Yeah.
Like it shows in the whole storytelling and what you're delivering, the story that you're telling,
Yeah.
and the song selection is perfect.
Oh,
Like the
thanks.
song selection is perfect with the storytelling, the interaction with the video in between.
Right.
It's just it's a great show. It really
Oh,
is. It really
thank
is.
you.
It blew me away seeing it live.
Yeah.
The whole production.
The whole thing together.
And it was something I never expected, and it was really good.
So that's an interesting perspective for you, though, because you really were involved from the very beginning stages of this show. And now you have that experience and that story to be able to tell that you saw it from the beginning until it really morphed into
Yeah.
what it became. And so I really love your perspective on
Yeah,
that.
it's also kind of like with photography, and it's like whenever I've done weddings and stuff like that. Whenever I'm lucky enough to be with there from a surprise engagement all the way to the
those are
wedding
fun.
day, it was the same kind of feeling.
Right.
Like seeing here, like the bare bones of just getting a stage and just doing different outfits and different shots and with the lighting and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Shout out to Garrett for the help with that. And then seeing the video aspect
Yep.
of it. It was really truly like the same
Yeah.
kind of journey.
Yep.
And I could repeat it over and over again. It really is a great show. And
you.
again, people need to see it,
Yeah.
you know, and
hope you do.
I think they would have a different, not that they don't have an admiration or respect for what Judy Garland has ever done.
Right.
Whether you have followed her whole career or just know her from Wizard of Oz.
Right.
It's a whole different layer of
Yeah.
someone's life that gave her life to entertainment.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know what I like about the show too is that a lot of what you saw from Judy Garland was just what you saw of her on screen or on stage. Unless you go and read the books or documentaries, you really don't know what was going on behind the scenes. And it's similar, I think, to our own stories in terms of people that you see on TV or on stage. You see that version of them.
Yeah.
You see them at their very, very best, you know, on their best days.
Yeah.
However, you don't see what goes into
Yeah, that's
the
true.
making of. You don't see those bad days. You don't see the rehearsals. You don't see the mess ups. You don't see the sacrifices that go into making that little baby that you saw years ago, that little seed of a show, blossom into what it is. For Judy, you know, her whole entire career, there were ups and downs. She had to believe in herself. She had to push through. You know, she lost her contract with MGM and didn't make a film for another 5 years. And then she
Yeah.
came back with A Star is Born. So it's just so interesting to see that, you know, her story is really the same as so many
There's
of
so
ours.
many, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and there's also other entertainers that have done it too, like, you know, Lucille Ball, Betty White.
Ah,
you know,
yes.
like I'm going like, you know,
Yes.
trying to say in that same like generation of
sure.
talent, you know, like Dick Van Dyke, like all these
Oh,
people,
Dick
you know,
Van
like
Dyke.
all these people that
Best.
we could go on and on. Angela Lansbury.
Oh,
like,
my
I mean, you know, there's so
gosh.
many, but there are so many you could name.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you think about how many people have lived in the history of ever,
Right.
there's a small percentage of people that have a huge impact on
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
what we've all,
Right.
you know, grown up with or known and emulate.
Yeah,
You know,
and
so-
careers, people, you know, celebrities that have been able to span generations with their careers, that have been able to sustain
Yeah.
for as long as they have. And now, of course, you know, Judy's legacy continues to live on. You know,
Yeah.
even now, you know, young kids still growing up watching
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz
Yep.
and still falling in love with her.
Yeah, and now there's Wicked.
Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
I mean, I've seen like bits and pieces of like the Broadway show, but I haven't seen the movie yet.
Okay, okay.
Because once I found out I was going to be in 2 parts, I'm just waiting right before the second part show, so I can just watch the first part, go right into the second part.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Stage is great. Saw it on Broadway. Great show. Movie, fantastic.
Yeah.
So see both if you can.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's.
You have a to-do list now.
I have a long to-do list, I'm sure. Yes. So one of these days, I want to try and sit with like my family, especially Brooklyn, just like just watch musicals.
Wait.
Yeah, just
you
like
need to do that. The
like,
classics.
Oh yeah,
the golden
she's
age.
watched them all. She's like Mamma Mia.
What's her favorite?
Outsiders.
Okay. Oh yeah, you said that. You said that.
Outsiders is one of her favorites. Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia is a good one. If you took her to New York today, what would she see?
Funny Girl.
Okay.
She loves was it Leah Michele?
Leah Michele.
Yeah, she actually went to go see it. It was like
Really?
a year or 2 ago. She went and saw it.
Good
She
for
She brought the
her.
playbill back home and everything. Yeah, Funny Girl is one of her things.
Okay.
I don't know if she watched the Barbra Streisand
Yeah.
version. I don't
That's
know
a
if she
good.
watched
That would be a
one.
good one to watch for her. With her.
But yeah, no, I mean like in La La Land, if you want to go like more modern.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
I like musicals. I've always kind of liked musicals. I mean, it's just there's something about musicals. La La Land, I think, it's a great musical because I feel it takes you on a journey of classic into modern.
Right.
Like from the opening scene.
I know.
The opening scene when they're dancing on the street and the highway in LA, which that's almost like every time in LA. Minus the dancing and singing.
Yeah, I wish there was dancing and singing.
But the way the scene ends, whenever the horn honks and everybody just like snaps out of it,
Exactly.
and like, oh, back to reality.
Yeah.
I thought that was like really cool that like musicals are, I don't want to say underrated, because they're not.
Yeah.
But I just feel like people need to watch more of them because I feel like you could be on a bigger emotional journey.
I agree.
More so than watching a drama movie or a horror movie or whatever, right? Like I feel like there's a bigger realm that you could live in.
It's a different way to suspend reality, right?
Yeah.
And you do get to have, the highs and the joy and the excitement and really going on the journey with the performers because they're singing, because they're dancing, because they're so expressive and emotive. You kind of, feel like, oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah,
You tap into a different part of yourself.
Yeah, and in some of these musicals of movies that they add different songs or different little things here and there, like Shrek, the musical is completely, I'm not saying completely different. There is a lot of differences in Shrek the musical.
There is, there are.
I'm trying to think of other ones that are like that. I mean, West Side Story, the movie, there's some songs in the stage that are in the movie.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, The Outsiders, I only have watched the movie. I've never seen this Broadway show. Other than whenever Brooklyn showed, they're like, "Hey, watch this YouTube video."
Okay,
right. So it's really cool, like to see. And musicals have been around for ever.
Gosh, I know.
I mean, we're talking Shakespearean times. That I mean, those are stage performance has always been a thing, and a lot of people always give me grief because I love professional wrestling. But it's stage performance.
So does my husband.
But it's stage performance. Everybody knows the outcome. It's all scripted, right?
Yeah.
But they have to perform.
Do you think it's good acting? Sometimes.
Well, I will say this. Maybe not. I'm not saying like it's Oscar-worthy acting, but whenever they're in the ring, and this is how I analyze even like musicals or movies, like they're still telling a story. And if you watch all these stories over a year of wrestling, WrestleMania all the way to the next WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah.
These guys are telling long-form stories that you don't even know.
Right.
And they're pulling stuff from years ago.
They got beef from this person.
Yeah, it's incredible how they're able to do it. And, I mean, it's just, I could never do it. And then you can't fake falling. I don't care what you say. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's
so,
funny.
it's just, I don't know, stage performance is just something that I just feel like it's such an incredible experience. And until you start doing it, whether you're on the stage or even in the crowd and do it more often, you never realize the appreciation of the work that it takes to get into.
Yeah.
And then if you get the message out of it,
Yeah.
then you're actually paying attention.
Right. It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey, from start to finish, from, conceptualizing something new like the Judy show to making it into, you know, the full version, and then expanding from there. You get new ideas. You have more that you want to do with it, new places, you know, take it to the next level. So it really does take a village for each and every endeavor on stage, also on screen too, if we relate back to, you know, the other part of my career. That, you know, it's great though, you know, if you can make it happen for yourself, you can stay committed and dedicated and, you know, use those skills and constantly believe in yourself. That's something that I've learned over the last couple of years, is that it hasn't been easy.
No,
in the last 5 years, with the pivots and the job changes and moving states, and literally, I mean, you know, moving across the country multiple times for different jobs and different opportunities. You go where the gig is, you go where the job is, because you believe in your career, and you believe in your abilities, and you believe in, you know, getting to the next level, and doing the best for yourself. You also got to believe that the
breakthrough's on the next thing, right? Every time.
Hopefully it is, you know? Just got to keep going.
Right. On the horizon for you, what are some of the near plans, future plans, whether it's, you know, TV, stage, Judy Garland at 100, you know, what's on the horizon for Hannah?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
I'd say more of it all.
Yeah.
You know, Judy Garland, Judy at 100, not going anywhere. So we have a lot coming up in the next couple of months. Cruise ships, shows in theaters, taking it to new places, taking it to the next level. So Judy Garland at 100 is very much going to continue being a part of, you know, what I do and what I tour all around the country, you know, just making connections with new places, being able to take it and, you know, inspire new audiences with Judy Garland at 100. So that's a major priority for me.
Keeping it a stage performance.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we doing more of that, and then more screen, more TV. Now, in the world of TV, I've been in all different places at this point, broadcasting, news, live streaming, home shopping. And right now I'm kind of at that point where I'm figuring out what's next in terms of TV, because the industry is changing so much.
Right.
And so I am, you know, trying to find the next best place for me to go to use those skills, wherever it might be. So I don't know, just you'll have to watch for me where I pop up next on your TV screens.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good though. But I mean, again, it's still, it goes back to, like, even though you don't have something right in front of you, you're in the middle of it. You know, as I'm talking to you and have seen you in your journey, you're always working on it.
Yeah, oh yeah. You never stop.
Yeah.
It's always a hustle. And especially right now, Lexi, the crazy thing is I'm busier than when I was full-time at a network. I feel so much busier because the hustle never ends until you figure out the right balance of, hey, if I'm going to be freelance for a while, great. That's a lot of work too.
Yeah.
You got to have all of those different things that are pulling in money as a freelancer. Or, hey, trying to make the right connections to get into the next network, you know, news stations, whatever it might be. I really do feel so much busier now, which is crazy to say, than when I was working, you know, the schedule of being on TV 5 days a week.
Okay.
So
that's interesting. But, you know, but I mean, but if you go back to, you know, the beginning of our conversation, you know, I mean, the first beginning of your years of being married.
Yeah.
You're ready for this now.
Oh, I'm so ready.
You know, like I think that's something we can all learn in life, right?
We've been through it all.
Right. It's easy to connect the dots behind us than it is ahead of us, right?
Exactly. So you learn along the way. You know, no journeys are perfect.
Right.
You know, I've had a lot of really cool opportunities. I always tell people, you know, my career has been vast and varied. I've touched all different kind of corners of what I call the entertainment industry, which is all encompassing of stage and screen, you know, singing, performing, whatever the case may be. It's all encompassed under the entertainment industry. And so it's just been so much fun to kind of be on that journey and find all of these different places and opportunities and cool places to work and amazing experiences. High highs and low lows, you know, because it's not perfect. Nobody's journey is perfect. Nobody's career path is perfect.
No.
We all have those different twists and turns along the way, but that makes it interesting.
Yeah.
gives us good stories to tell.
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason why I have, people like you on here is like, I've come across people that have these really cool stories. And, like we said earlier, like, people can have a perception. Like I could take a picture of you, which I have, and I've posted pictures of you as I have. And everybody like, oh, that's a great photo. But that's like, man, there's a story there.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. And like this person is like doing incredible things, or this person's come out of terrible circumstance. I'm not saying you, but I'm saying in general, like, like I think that's doing this podcast, and even before I started even doing this, I always have those weird things. Even like the other day, I was playing a baseball game, and I'm like sitting there in a batter's box, and I see a plane fly by. I'm like, I wonder where that thing's going. Yeah. And that's how I just approach things. It's like, I wonder, like, what's the story?
Yeah.
Like where is the story there? Like, and what could I learn from it?
Right.
Where could I grow from it?
Great person to host this podcast, though.
And it's also been scary, though. This whole thing has been scary.
You should do a podcast on that. Your journey with podcasting.
Yeah.
And photography.
Gosh, getting meta with it. No. Well, I think the scary part for me is not, because I could talk to anybody. I've never met a stranger.
Right.
It's just for so many years up until this year, C12 photography has just been a logo. It's never been my face. It's never been me. I don't even have headshots of myself.
I didn't even realize that.
No. Because I've never wanted to, I guess similar to like, you didn't want to have your Judy Garland show to you being dressed up as Judy Garland, and that's the identity of it. You wanted to be someone that's a steward of her story, right?
Exactly.
For me, with my photography, is I want my photography to be a steward of the talent that I have in it.
I like that.
Right? And I don't want people to like hire me because they know me. Sure, I've had people hire me because they know me.
Right.
But I don't want it to be there's reason why they don't hire me either. Like, oh, that's him?
Right.
I don't want him, because I'm pretty sure there's people out there that don't like me.
Oh, I don't believe that.
But no, I just always thought, it's like, my work should be good enough.
Yeah.
And my work should be the reason why you pick
It's a good mentality.
And then you pick me, great. And and all the other good stuff that comes with it is going to be a part of it,
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
I like that.
I think that's where, and the more I've been doing this, the more comfortable I've been getting in it.
Yeah.
Nowhere near as probably good as you are in front of a camera and being able to be, on. Yeah. So
we should do a podcast on when Hannah's off.
Oh, okay.
The not
like a reality
on version.
show. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Then you really get to see the behind the scenes of what goes into the making of.
That's what's really on the horizon.
You just follow me around and see all of the chaos, Alexi. There's a lot.
Hey. Controlled chaos.
I know. I mean, we might have something with that.
This is true.
It's another good idea. Write it down.
We'll have to write that down.
Oh, writing it down. Okay.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that this happened. We were able to make it happen.
Me too.
And wish you all the best of luck with everything. Again, everybody, Judy at 100, wherever you're at, you need to see this show. It's really great. Hannah, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad we were able to work this out. You've been a good friend now for years, so I'm so happy that you invited me on and are letting me kind of tell my story and my journey.
It's a great story.
I really appreciate that.
It's a great story. Thanks. A great story from a great storyteller.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.